Hey guys, it's me, Halloween Dan, and as you can see, I'm outside. This is weird and unusual because today I'm showing you something, I'm doing something not my usual bag, though it is something I do every year. Today, I'm showing you the first of my projects, the first of my builds for the new season. I like to build my own things every year. This year, I'm going to the extreme. You may have already heard and seen a video where I talked about trying my hardest to build a castle. Yeah, I have already started. That's why I don't call these videos tutorials, because not only is nobody is learning anything here, but also I am not trying to say I'm teaching anyone anything here. And I also forget to film half of it because I get so enthusiastic about just doing something on the spot or on the spur of the moment that I just kind of do things and act in the moment. But I have made some progress. I want to show you where I'm up to. I'm gonna try and show you a couple of the techniques I've so far used. This is not gonna be a video that has a start, a middle and an end. This is definitely going to be one that is where you're left in the lurch, wanting for more hopefully, because I will be filming this as I go. This is part one of many, I should imagine. So let me show you where I'm up to with my first build of the season, the start at least of my castle. So this is where I'm up to. This is part one, stage one of several stages that are nowhere near completion, as you can see, but I have at least made a start. And this kind of just marks the beginning, I think you would say. The first thing worth mentioning here is that everything I'm doing is experimental. Nothing here is written in stone. Nothing here is this is going to be the final look, this is going to be the final thing. There are still several things I want to do, and I'm going to start with the frame that I built. So the frame I built is a really basic frame. I've used 8-foot pieces of timber on the outer edge and then 6-foot struts across, and that's it. And then I've added these extra struts for support on either side of what will be a doorway. And what I am planning to do is add some further supports, probably some diagonals across this section and that section, and maybe some extra supports around the door as well. Probably some extra support around the crenellations. Is that the right word? I don't even know, but that's what I'm hoping to do. I just really wanted to get this started and see where I could go with it. On top of the frame, I've used what are basically, they're not quite 4x2. They're a little bit smaller than 4x2. They're definitely 4 foot tall, but they are just short of 2 foot wide pieces of grey insulation styrofoam. Now, this wasn't actually the foam I had in mind when I was thinking of doing this, but I bought this foam for 2 reasons. The first reason was that it was a lot cheaper than the foam I had in mind, and I'm a cheapskate. So whereas the foam I had in mind was going to be one big solid piece and was a very different kind of foam to this, would have cost me in the region of over £120 just to clad the 2 bits of wall I've got planned. These pieces of foam only cost me about £65 for enough foam to clad both walls. The downside is that, of course, with it being styrofoam, it doesn't necessarily cut as well as the other kind of foam, nor is it as strong as the other kind of foam. You can hear it cracking, and there it's moving because I haven't put that extra support behind it yet, but I will do that. But there was another reason why I bought this foam over the other one. The other foam, as good as it is, as thick as it is, as strong as it is, doesn't actually melt, which is a good thing if you're insulating your home because it's fire safe, but not if you're trying to create stuff. And what I liked about this stuff was that it definitely would melt with the heat of a soldering iron, giving me this very basic block effect. And when you look down here, you can also indent the foam with a stone to create a kind of a stone effect. Now I know what you guys are going to say. That doesn't look very good, Dan. Yeah, and I agree. It looks okay, it's not the best. I am going to experiment with this and see how good of a realistic look I can create. I'm also going to weather it, even though technically this would be an indoor scene, would be what this was technically trying to be. And I have yet no idea who's going to be stood in this doorway. But all of these are things I'm going to figure out along the way. It's why I've started in July, so that I can figure these things out. At least to begin with, this is starting to look a little bit like how I wanted it to look. I can also paint it, which was all what this was about, just an experiment to see how well it painted. Hopefully with a few more layers of paint and a few more things and details, like the details I'm adding here on the crenellations, it'll start to look a little bit more like a weathered old castle and less like some pieces of foam hastily screwed to a timber frame. The reason I've left a gap at the bottom as well is because I'm planning to attach this to some pallets. So this is a little over 8 foot high, it's actually closer to 9, and also then I will also have struts coming out from the back of this frame as extra support that I can knock into the ground to anchor this down even further, because wind is going to be a huge issue for this. I am under no illusions that this will basically be a giant sail. The only good thing is that this doesn't have to look really realistic. This is going to be very much in the background of my horn. I'm standing approximately the distance away from how far away it will be from people who are actually coming to see my horn. And as you can see from here, from this distance, the block work doesn't look too bad. It looks, I'm not going to say realistic, but it doesn't look terrible. So hopefully from this kind of distance, it will pass. It will pass as a castle. I've obviously got to add some slightly more three-dimensional elements to cover the timber. I've also got to cover the bit of timber around the door that you can see. And this section here will obviously be attached to a second wall. This is the one wall of 2. And that second wall will also give this some support and some strength, which will be good. But right now, this is all very experimental. I honestly don't know whether this will be the end result, whether I'll change my mind entirely and go with a different kind of foam or change the frame ever so slightly. Everything I'm doing right now is very experimental and in the very earliest phases of me deciding how this is going to look and what I'm going to do with it. But so far at least, despite this foam being much cheaper and much weaker than the other kind of foam I had in mind, I'm actually quite impressed with the effect I'm getting out of it. So to create the blocks, I'm using my handy dandy soldering iron, which I don't use very often for soldering because I'm rubbish at it, but I am using it, the heat of it at least, to create the basic blockwork pattern because it melts out the blockwork. And I think it actually gives a really good effect. I think when painted, this will actually look pretty good. So I'm going to just show you, there's nothing new I'm doing here. This has been done before, people have seen this before, but I just thought I'd show you a little bit of this technique and how easy this is. Like, I did most of this block work in about 20 minutes, whereas if I'd been using a Dremel or something else, it would have taken me hours to do this sort of level of stuff so far. So really good, really fast. The only thing worth mentioning about this, especially because this is plastic styrofoam, it gives off terrible fumes. It stinks. And I basically sent myself into outer space on a little trip the other day when doing this. I have bought myself a dust mask. Well, it's one of the higher level, the P3 ones. Hopefully that will keep out some of the vapors. So I'll show you the technique. So unfortunately we got rained off
because the UK summer at the minute really sucks. So we couldn't carry on for very long there, so you didn't really get to show you an awful lot more. But to be honest, there isn't an awful lot more to show right now. I'm taking it easy, I'm taking it a day at a time, doing a little bit at a time. And hopefully, by the time we get to October, we will have something that looks a bit like a castle. I think it's looking pretty good so far. Like I say, this is part one of many parts yet to come. But hopefully, by the end of it, at least some people will go, nice castle, Dan. But we'll see. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this random one today, and I will see you in the next one. Keep it spooky. Bye.